All right, so as John said, my name is Charles Dunbar. I'm one of the tech ops people at Puppet Labs. I've been there for about 2 years. So, this is who I am. I don't have a Twitter, so I hang out on IRC mostly. So, who is not doing centralized logging right now? What do you guys do when you need to look at logs at a lot of things? All right, so we're going to hopefully fix that. Couple reasons why I liked it. People want to look at logs at all of our web servers all at once. I don't want to go through each individual directory. If you have a really small web server out in the cloud, you don't want to use all the disk space because disk is really expensive in the cloud. You can just not locally log and just send it all back to your servers. Harder to have hackers delete your logs. I haven't looked into compliance. I assume that is a reason. I was looking for a third bullet point. That's what I came up with.
No, it's real. PCI compliance requires you to store all the logs. They have to be.
I remember you have to store them. I didn't know if you have to keep them for so many years. Yeah, okay. All right. So probably putting that in a place that isn't every server is a good thing. So, and then we're going to visualize logs as well because humans are very, very good at finding these kind of patterns. This is our syslog in our actual production. And you can see every 5 minutes, I'm betting that's our cron jobs doing something. So the tools I'm going to use for this demo, we're going to use our syslog with SSL. We're going to piggyback off the SSL infrastructure that Puppet gives you when you spin up Puppet. We're going to use the elk stack for the visualizations, Logstash forwarder for shipping logs that aren't syslogged, and Puppet and the Forge just to get everything provisioned quick and easy. I'm going to be using Debian VMs. That's what we use at Puppet right now. This should work with any OS. I think all the Forge modules handle all the big OSs. This is where you can find all the steps. I'll be going to this actually because it has all my steps, and I will just be copying and pasting from that. And all right, so this is what our initial setup is right now, which we have right here. I'm using Vagrant to spin up some VMs. It's a quick, nice way to quickly get some VMs going and working with them. All I did with Vagrant when I was provisioning them was I said I wanted a Debian box. I want you to set up the IPs, and then I munged etc host so I can kind of have DNS. And I installed some packages I like, and that was it. After Vagrant up, they're all here. So, without further ado, so we don't have anything right now. Right now, everything is just, I configured Puppet on the Vagrant run. So everything is connected in Puppet. This is our Puppet master. So I just spun it up. We have all the certs. Everything is there. So step one of what we want to do is we want our syslog on all of our machines to point to our syslog server. That's the whole point of this talk. Sorry for the bouncing around. All right, so all we're going to do is install one module called on the Puppet master. We will install that module. SAS our syslog is the most download our syslog module. Yeah. And then we will simply copy a site PP that I created. I should have a disclaimer that while this is working, I wouldn't use the exact files I'm using in your production. This is a very simple Puppet file. I'm going to run Puppet in the background here. And then while it's running, I'll explain what all it's doing. So Puppet's going to run on every node. So on our Puppet node, let me vim. We just want SSL on, and we want to ship the logs to the rsyslog server, which is defined in our etc hosts, and we want to use the CA cert. Our syslog node, same thing, we want SSL. We want it to be a syslog server. This is where we're going to put our remote logs. And again, setting up the SSL using the Puppet certs. And then client and elk, exact same thing. So Puppet is running on all of those. So if I have that centered, and if this feels like need in quotes. So as you can see, Puppet is running, and we are already having nodes connect to syslog, so we're done. We have centralized logging. That's it. I can prove that we're using SSL, TCP dump. Always have to remember that one. That does not look like plain text to me. It might to you. I don't know. It looks like nothing. And there it is. All right. So that's done. How long have we done? That timer's not going. It's been 8 minutes. So already we have all of our logs. So that's all you need. And this is all I had for quite a while. When I set this up, was back in the days of not Kibana 3, Kibana previous, when it didn't look as pretty. So I wasn't too enthusiastic about getting it installed and running. But now it looks great. So now we're going to go on to step 2, which I have a picture for. So now we want Logstash, which is going to just read that directory that our syslog is writing to. It's just going to read all the files and ship it to Elasticsearch. This slide is kind of lying. I'm not installing Logstash on the Elk server right now. I'm installing Logstash on our syslog server just to keep it in one spot. It's a personal preference. That's how we have it. It can go either way. And then we're also going to install Kibana, so we'll be able to look at the logs as soon as this step is done as well. So back to the master. So I'm going to use the modules from Elasticsearch, and as we announced, the Elasticsearch one is Puppet approved. So that's cool. This one. So we're just getting all the modules that we need. And for Kibana 3, Elasticsearch didn't have one, so I just grabbed one that looked easy to configure. Kibana module is just going to install Apache and point to the correct spot for Kibana. So I'm going to copy my new site PP, which we will look at during the Puppet run, because this Puppet run takes longer because I have to get Java and Elasticsearch and a few packages that are much bigger. And I'm also going to install the templates that are required for the Logstash module. Logstash's config has inputs, filters, and outputs, and we will look at those as well as everything is running. I should just have. And since we're only doing things on the elk and our syslog, that's all we're going to run Puppet on. If I'm in a Puppet, if I'm in my Vagrant directory. That'll just run. So, what's this Puppet doing right now? So for the Puppet node, it doesn't do anything. It's not going to do anything for the rest of the demo. For our syslog, we have this new section. We need to be root as Logstash because servlog is not readable by not root right now. That's just a permissions thing. Logstash installing from a package. We want to install Java. You set it so we're root, and then we have our input, filter, and output. We will look at those in a quick second, but we just want to read basically our syslog files. We want to tell Logstash how to parse and put that into the correct fields, and then just send it to Elasticsearch. Client's not doing anything at this step. On the Elk node, we're installing Elasticsearch. Same thing, install Java, install Elasticsearch from a package resource, set up the cluster of Elasticsearch, and I installed some plugins that I like to look at Elasticsearch with, and just install Kibana 3. Elasticsearch is on the local host, and that's it. So this is Logstash's config format. I just want to ship a couple of the logs, and I set a type, which I will use later in the filter. Logstash has an syslog input. I like to use the file input because then I can keep the files on the server as well. Sometimes having files just makes me feel better, helps me sleep. So here's our filter. If it's our syslog. Logstash, by default, when it receives a message, will set the timestamp to the time it got the log in Logstash. We don't want that. We want to say, hey, when did syslog get the log? So this is the format of the syslog log. And then we will use grok, which is Logstash's super regex, to basically say the message is going to be in the format of a syslog line, which is predefined in Logstash. And it'll split it into a bunch of fields like host, file, the PID of the process, and by default, the message will be the entire log. I don't want that. I want the message field to actually be what it splits it into afterwards. And Puppet is still running. What are we up to? We're up to our syslog. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of going pretty fast. Question?
So in this case, working with SSL, does it mean you cannot accept connection from network devices, for example, which are not using SSL?
So the question is, since I set up SSL, I can't send network syslog because they don't do SSL. By default, it also starts to listen on UDP 514. So like that's exactly what we do. We have TCP 514 for all of our servers, and then UDP 514 for everything. Like, I want to say VMware doesn't do it either with SSL. So all of our networking gear, all that, we just send over UDP, which will still show up in the same place, and Logstash will pick it up. So I am betting this is taking forever because installing Java takes a while. So I have Elk installed, finished. So I can go to conf, which I remember from my German high school is German for head, which is the other plugin. So we have Elasticsearch up. Here it is. There's nothing in it because Logstash is not installed yet on our syslog server, so it has nothing to show off yet. And there's Java installed. So this should be almost done. I hope. It's how it worked in the demo, in my practice runs. We have a 2-node Elasticsearch cluster with, I believe, 4 terabytes of data so far. We initially set it up in March, and we're doing all of our web traffic, all of our syslog, all of our servers. And then a couple other teams have their own things that they use it for as well. We probably need to expand that a little bigger. So yeah, just 2 servers. 2. Oh, into the Elasticsearch? We just have 1 Kibana front end, which is what? Oh, how many servers are shipping? Our syslog server is, and then our 2 Logstash front ends, which pick up anything from Logstash forwarder. So not many things are putting things into Elasticsearch.
You meant how many servers are generating syslog events?
Okay.
How many servers do you have that are connected?
300 or 400. Sorry about. We don't monitor network traffic sizes that much. We haven't hit any bandwidth issues at the moment. We probably should be looking at that eventually. So we still don't have any data. I'm going to make some data. I'm going to run Puppet on everything. And there we go. Ooh. There we go. So this is yellow instead of green now because I only have one instance and it's by default trying to do a replica. It has no place to put that replica. So for the demo, it's fine. Things are fine. We have 240 docs right now because all these info messages are now in here. So if we go to Kibana and go to the default Logstash dashboard, last 5 minutes, zoom in. So here's how Logstash split up the syslog message. Normally, this is all one big long line. Now we can do things like, I only care about things that aren't the Puppet agent run. So what are these? This is Puppet master. OK. So it's really easier to quickly see what's going on. Off things. Cool. They're logging in, logging out. So that is step 2. So far, we have all of our syslog. Everything's syslog. But now, what happens when you don't want to use syslog? What if you just want your Apache logs in here? There's a program called Logstash Forwarder, which is also written by Elasticsearch people. It basically just tails the file and sends it using SSL to a Logstash node that is listening. So we will again piggyback off the Puppet certs and quickly get that installed. So I will forewarn with this that this is not in the forge. So I'm going to just git clone from Elasticsearch themselves. I'm not sure why it's not in the forge, but some modules just aren't. And they are a git clone away. I will also say that currently installing Logstash Forwarder from its package makes Logstash Forwarder not run because the init script is wrong. So we're going to also manage the init script with Puppet. It tries to point to Logstash Forwarder, etc Logstash Forwarder instead of etc Logstash dash forwarder. Some quick typo. Probably needs to be a pull request.
Is that a Puppet Labs package?
No, it is Elasticsearch's repo. So I'm going to get this running, and we will look at what we're doing. Puppet's not doing anything new. Our syslog's not doing anything new. The client is, I'm throwing my own personal access logs in temp access. Obviously, that's not where access logs normally live for Nginx, but this is a demo. Setting up Logstash Forwarder, we're going to point it to elk on port 12,000, use the Puppet certs. We want it to manage the repo, to install it with, and we set up, hey, send that log to Logstash. And then here's managing the init script. So it will actually run. And elk, same Elasticsearch stuff. Here's the Logstash stuff. We're now installing Logstash on the elk node and listening for just port 12,000 traffic, so only client will talk to the elk node. We're also grabbing a GeoIP database so we can do cool maps from all the IPs that hit my server. And then we set up our input filter and output again, as we did previously. And in Logstash, it's actually called Lumberjack because that was its old name. So if you're looking for it, it's Lumberjack. So again, we're just using the Puppet certs. So it will listen on port 12,000. Again, there's a built-in regex called combined Apache log. Apache and Nginx have the same access log format, so I'm just piggybacking off that. Different timestamp format, and we're going to use the GeoIP filter to read the client IP field that it will get from the grok, and we'll point it to the database, and we'll be able to make a cool map in the end. And then, yeah, I don't think I showed the output. The output is truly just send your logs to Elasticsearch over HTTP. So Puppet is done. And since it is a tailer, log tail device, I didn't put the log that it was tailing in yet. So I will now do that on the client. Nope. So now it's just going to have that access log. So those logs should be shipped into Logstash now. So ideally, the client should be shipping that access log to the Logstash node. And my logs are back from when I wrote the demo, so right here. Had I not put that date filter in, they would have showed up right now. So now, here is all the information it parsed out. This time I didn't overwrite the message field, so this is just the entire log line normally, and this is all the different extra it grabbed from this information. So showing off the elk stack, we can quickly now add a map. I forgot, I think it's region name. Yeah, so I hit my web server, my friends hit my web server. I don't know who these people are. So, cool. And we have, we've gone through all of our steps now. So now, are there any questions? High availability, we do with HA proxy. Again, just grab the module off the forge and set it up. We use Keep Alive D and HA proxy, and it's worked well enough so far. We haven't really had log loss in many months. If the network goes down for any reason, for any of those, our syslog is set up by default to store 1 gig locally, and then it'll send all of that. And Logstash does the same kind of caching thing, and it keeps track of where it's reading in the file. And Logstash Forwarder does the same, I believe. Yes?
How many different types of logs are you shipping from Logstash to Elasticsearch?
We are shipping not that many different types of logs. I want to say less than 20. Most of them are just basically different kind of formats, like Drupal logs are a little bit different, so we have to make a special custom one for that. Varnish logs, I think, are just Apache. Apache error logs are different format, syslog. And I think that's about it for the most part.
You're looking at all this through one central Kibana front end?
Yes. If I was logged into my personal, if I was logged into the work one, you could set up different, you could just do if type is Nginx or whatever, and it'll only show those ones.
And how many messages are you basically looking at per day?
Elasticsearch gets about 20 gigs a day, which I believe is 8. I've seen 12 to 50 million messages a day, depending on what's going on. And it's been keeping up pretty well.
Do you ever get any of these circuit breaker exceptions on Kibana when you do some massive search over like the entire terabyte or something?
So the question was about circuit breaker when doing massive queries. Yes, Those do happen quite often, especially when not the ops team is trying to do a query. Sometimes people want to know every single download that has happened to puplabs.com since March, and that breaks our Elasticsearch sometimes. I probably need to get along with the Elasticsearch people and talk to them about that. I feel we could be doing it better. But for the most part, everyday queries that we use it for, 90% of the time, it's been working real well.
Is there any part of this that you would want to put into something like Splunk?
We looked at Splunk. The only issue we had was our data. We did too much data per day to make it cost-worthy. That's the only real big thing. Yes? Oh.
So you say you look at Splunk, because we actually have Splunk. So how would you, let's say that if it was not as costly, how would you leverage Splunk?
I don't think there is a Splunk module. There might be. For Puppet? Is there? It's been a while since I played with Splunk. Yeah, I remember it being flat text config files, so Puppet could do it pretty quickly. Yes. Is there? Okay.
Have you experimented with other formats for transport side? Things that are not so strong like JSON, or things that push it in the log a little bit?
I have not looked too much into that. Are you meaning like using RELP for our syslog instead of TCP?
We're trying to get some Windows servers to ship logs, execution probably is to use something like an Xlog. We're trying to not use syslog, DDP on there. One of the few options that's there is using JSON.
Okay.
Shipping JSON to Logstash.
Right. I have not looked too much into that. I know Jordan is here. He wrote Logstash. I think he has a talk at 5:10. So there are a lot of different ways to put things into Logstash, more than I have ever needed so far.
What about security on the Elasticsearch?
Yeah, there isn't much really that we've done for security-wise. Anyone in the company can just kind of look at everything right now. It's been working. We haven't had reason to deny access for one way or the other. That's something I think about and I haven't tackled yet. Yes?
There's a couple of blog posts on running with Nginx.
Yeah, we're running a bunch of reverse proxies and
Well, there's a couple posts on how to run a lockdown Logstash and with a Kibana funnel.
Yeah, so
You have a password authentication.
technically I have set up a reverse proxy with Nginx, so some cloud machines can query Elasticsearch, and we just have the firewall rule to only allow those nodes to hit that IP and port. So I haven't found one quite yet. Yeah, Jetty is another thing. Yes?
What about information lifecycle ideas for rolling out older logs that you need, or have you got there yet?
We have not gotten there yet for rolling out logs. Could you give an example?
Yeah, so the idea that, data from 90 days old is more cold data, it should be, stored.
So we've thought about shipping old log indexes to another. I mentioned we have 2 Elasticsearch nodes. We've thought about making a third one on really slow compressed storage and just moving those indexes to that one once they get old. And then if people really want to do a query, it's going to take a really long time, but they'll get it. But we haven't done that in practice yet. So far, right now, are doing just roll-up scripts. So we use Elasticsearch's aggregations to convert, a couple gigs of data to a couple hundred megabytes for like all of our web downloads. We just do an aggregation on how many counts happened within that day, and then we just store that in a new index. Yes?
anything on the Windows side? Can you try to make some
I'm sorry to say we have one Windows VM in operations. I've not looked into Windows much. I've heard there's syslog for Windows, but again, Logstash has a bunch of different inputs. I don't know what half these are, but if you can send it out that way, Logstash can pick it up. I don't actually know how much. Okay, 8 minutes. That timer went on. Okay, any more? Yes?
Do you use this at all to pull out metrics or do any kind of alerting based on some sort of triggers?
Right now, we don't. We don't do any metric alerting based off this stuff. We could send it all to Graphite. We could have, the problem is I really don't want our monitoring system to query Elasticsearch every minute or so. I would probably want that in something like Graphite, which we do have monitoring over. But right now, from what we've done, people just mostly use it for dashboards for quick querying of information. Yes?
You can go ahead and get alerts from it, though.
Yeah, actually, so I do get alerts from SNMP traps. I send those through Elasticsearch, and then I do a Nagios NSCA just kind of deal. And that's the only thing I've set up, actually, in that regard. All right. Hope this has been informative. Again, I'll pull up this one. Where'd it go? There it is. So it's just GitHub Charles Dunbar, PuppetConf 2014. You can git clone, vagrant up, and then do this exact same thing that I did. And hopefully it'll work for you too. Thank you.